Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking about Scream 3 on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, and that's your old pal Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Hollywood, land of dreams and crimes. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we are dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. We're going to unpack all the gory details of Scream 3 in one episode, because we're not fucking breaking it up. We don't care to, in the hopes that a starlet's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes that we can make at their expense. And as always, there is only one person I trust that if I make a snide remark in her direction, she'll turn around and say, fuck you, so I can say, fuck you too. Where's Roman? The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I'm good. I've got my Creed t-shirt, my Creed poster, my Creed CD.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I am ready
Are all
to
these
talk
things
about
brought to me by Creed?
I am ready to talk about 2000's Scream 3, Scream for Creed.
The Creed of Screams is what people on the street call it. Do you remember a Creed poster in Sydney's room in the 1996 film? Because I do not.
I sure don't.
Because that is the sort of thing that you and I have made a little bit of bread and a little bit of butter making fun of. And I think if there was a fucking Creed poster in her goddamn room, we would have spent, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes talking about it.
If I recall, she had an Indigo Girls poster.
Oh,
which
well.
Did not seem, I think at the time we said that did not seem like something she would listen to.
Right, yeah.
But Creed seems even less likely something she would listen to.
I don't know what Sidney Prescott listens to, but is neither Indigo Girls nor Creed. It certainly is not Creed, and that is one of the oddest posters of any band I've ever seen, of the lead singer who is perpetually shirtless, wearing the largest flamed bowling shirt, and then the bassist is standing next to him in just like nipple piercings. That's all he's got. What a fucking odd way to like, hey, listen to this band where we screech about Jesus. Don't mind the bassist. He's dressed in pantyhose.
2000, baby.
What a time to be alive. And we were. But I don't want to go too far here, Gina, because we are not alone. That's right. We have a special guest. He is a professional therapist by day, but by night, he is the co-host of both The Pod and the Pendulum and Psychotherapy, the one, the only Mike Snoonian. How are you doing today, Mike?
Hello, I am the Creed of Silverchair of Bush bands, basically. I'm doing, man, early 2000 butt rock. What a time to be alive.
Got a little 7 Mary 3 there.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Just give me a little Power Man 2000.
Whatever the fuck that was.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. I am doing fantastic, and I am really excited to join the show tonight to defend Scream 3. Because
it's gonna need
someone
one,
had
Mike.
to do it.
Someone's going to have to defend it, because I certainly won't be doing it.
Defend the indefensible. God bless you.
Wow.
This would be evidence in court, to be honest with you. It is sadly devoid of verve and purpose of life. There's a lot of things wrong with it that they were able to rescue in Scream 2, but not here. And it certainly doesn't help that the person who came up with 3/4 of the Scream movies is not present for this one. That doesn't really help. It doesn't help that they scuttled what they had planned because of Columbine. Something like, oh, fuck that movie. Let's make it a completely different movie.
I wonder if the eventual screenwriter, Ehren Kruger, got the role like, Wes Craven's, I've been successful with one Kruger. Why not another?
Work that magic again.
What can go wrong?
Boy, this is a real weird period for Craven, because it's obvious that he has a ton of technical skill at this point. Like, his ability to make a movie has caught up with his imagination, right? He can transform material into crackerjack entertainment. It's well within his grasp, well within his ability. But I think almost anybody would be somewhat stymied by, for the second time in a row, the Scream movie you set out to make just gets the rug pulled out of it right before you're supposed to film it. And on top of that, that means that your star is no longer really going to be in your movie. She can only show up for 20 days of a 9-week shoot. And all of a sudden, you don't have a lead, and you transfer all of the stuff that would have gone to her now to 2 other characters who don't really serve that function normally. And things are just out of balance. And then but on the flip end of it, I think the wildest part about this motion picture is that it essentially serves as an indictment of one of the executive producers of it. That this is basically, here's the case against Harvey Weinstein, the movie.
I love that about this movie. I love that almost 2 decades before the chickens came home to roost for Weinstein, you have a director that is basically laying the case out against him right away. Like, this is stealthily a movie saying this is who we're involved with here, and it's right under his nose. And you have to imagine it went over his head, or this would never, because we never feel like we're the antagonist in our own story,
right?
So otherwise, I don't think this movie would have ever seen the light of day as it was. Would have been like a third reboot of what the third movie was supposed to be.
He knew something was up, because part of the scuttling here is not only what the plot was originally supposed to be, but as the original script that Kruger wrote is that there are 2 killers. We have one who is revealed to be Neve Campbell's long lost half brother. And then we have the actress who is playing her in the movie, who in the original version of her was actually a classmate of hers and wants to supersede her, not only on screen, but then in life. These things sort of make sense. But when you take one of those away, and for whatever reason, the Weinsteins said, oh no, she can't be one of the killers. In my mind, that's saying, oh, we can't have an actress like take control of a situation and strike back. That, I think, is what they said no to. And they let the other part slide, which is weird as fuck.
And when I was watching this movie, and I was thinking to myself, hey, I had to say, this was a first time watch for me.
Yeah.
I had not seen Scream 3. I still haven't seen Scream 4 yet. So I'm watching it and I'm thinking, well, there must be some reason that Randy's sister shows up. Wouldn't it be kind of cool? Oh, look, it's Wiener Dog from Welcome to the Dollhouse. Wouldn't it be cool if it turned out she was the killer and getting revenge for her brother's death? Yeah. No, she's gone. She doesn't show up again. She just pops up almost literally out of nowhere like a jack in the box to get them a videotape, and then bye now. See you later.
Yeah, she just shows up in apparently Randy's old outfit. It's what it looks like. They just put on big boy's pants and the craziest top you have and some yellow sunglasses like you're a vampire or going to a shooting range. You're Randy's sister. And then she says Woodsboro in a way that I've never heard it pronounced before. You must come back to Woodsboro.
Well, she's from New Jersey.
It's true. It's hard to wrap your R's and O's around Woodsboro with a Jersey accent.
I wonder if there was a version of the script where Jason Mewes, who pops up.
Oh my God.
A minute 14 minutes and 30 seconds into his 15 minutes. If he is the one of the 2 killers, if there's a version out there floating around, who knows?
This movie is so very, very 2000.
Yes.
With the Creed references and the Jay and Silent Bob cameo and fucking Jenny McCarthy in it for 5 minutes. And it's just like, God, you were reminding me of only the very worst aspects of early 21st century pop culture. Why are you doing this to me?
it's funny because the first two movies are like references. They basically just reference horror movies over and over. I mean, they basically are statements on horror movies. And this third movie feels like it's a statement or a look back on the first two movies.
Yeah.
Like they're meta about the actual not just the first two Scream movies, but the behind the scenes coming and goings as well of the movie. Like it's really commenting on itself.
Yes.
And in some ways it feels like a very odd victory lap at times as well for a movie. Like, look what we, because obviously all three of these movies are very successful, and it feels like a victory lap going, look what we were able to pull off.
Yeah, it feels to me the word I would use to describe it is smug. It's very pleased with itself.
Yes. It at the very least, it's putting on that front. And it doesn't help that I think anytime a movie sort of puts an eye towards Hollywood, everyone gets instantly 15 times more cynical. And in reality, people aren't that dire about going to work here.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't need a Scream movie where all the characters hate each other.
Yes.
I did not need, them falling into the usual slasher movie trope of wisecrack, stalk away, get killed.
I was just going to say, it goes back to the thing, Gina, you've pointed out a couple times whenever we've traveled down the 2000s. And even though this is right at the cusp, this is the influence of reality TV on horror movies, where all of a sudden they go, not only are these people mean, but they have to be mean in a witty way, which weaves its way through 1 and 2 in a very interesting way. And here it's just openly crass and jerky. Like everyone's a fucking jerk.
Yeah, it's not even the actors. It's Patrick Dempsey is a police detective, and he's fine. His character's okay, although he's like practically doing like the Tex Avery wolf howling when Neve Campbell shows up.
He's a wooga 24/7. Yeah.
But he's got this partner who's just a fucking asshole for no reason. Just
the worst.
Everybody just insulting everyone and rolling his eyes and just like, dude, you're investigating a serial killer.
And he's pissed off that this guy with this great hair is his partner. Like it comes down to that.
He couldn't be more annoyed at having to do his job.
He constantly feels like he's trying out a Henny Youngman routine, like basically take my victim, please type of deal. Like just,
one of these days
like,
I'm going to take this murder case and boom, zap right to the moon.
Yes. Just total disdain for everything.
And everybody's an asshole to Dewey. And it's like, man, this man has been murdered 6 times. You show some respect for Dewey.
Honestly, I mean, and they're just like open dicks to like everyone he walks into contact with dies. It's like, well, that's the true of 2 other people in that triumvirate. Like they're all in the same everyone around us dies, crew. I'm sorry to say it.
It's like if you don't want to be around him, then why did you hire him to work on the film set?
I will say, and I know we'll get into it when we get to the character, but I would say that Sydney, by the end of this movie, has a little taste of the killing of her own. Like she has Roman incapacitated, and she's like, now I will stab you in the chest at this point. So by the third movie, like Sydney's got a bit of the bloodlust in her, I would say.
Well, I was waiting for her to say, because the setup here is that Roman, who's the killer here, is directing stab 3. So she stabs him twice in the back and he falls on the ground and she's like, oh, what movie were you making again? And then stabs him in the chest. But wouldn't it be better if he said stab 3 and then she stabs him the 3rd time? Like that's there. I'm not a fucking genius, but that's how that shit is supposed to work. And everyone is like an inch away from something that works, and it's just all discombobulated. Mm-hmm. People are just out of control, and that's before we get to Courtney Cox's bangs. Jesus.
Where do we start?
Why are they so close to the crown of her head?
Yeah, that's a hairstyling accident. That's not a deliberate choice. I don't know why they just didn't give her extensions or a wig, but
put her in a wig.
They are distracting.
No.
They're just, you could put in a fall in the shape of bangs and it would have worked better. Like, it's so weird to see the kid from Deliverance walk around in red leather pants in this movie and go, oh, no, that's Courtney Cox. That is a bad look on a very attractive person. Like, that's murder. Remember when we saw J-Lo's eyebrows in Anaconda?
Right.
And we're like, oh, someone hated her. That's the feeling I get.
Well, yes. I think that a big part of this movie was, well, we need to knock back Gail a few pegs.
Yeah.
So, we'll have it turn out that, Dewey's back to hating her again, but he also still loves her too. But, he still kind of hates her a little bit because she didn't want to stick around Woodsboro. Like, why would he at this point? I mean, if I have been stabbed, shot, thrown down a flight of stairs, whatever the hell this poor man has been through in this town, I'm picking up and getting out of Dodge. That town's got some very bad mojo for me.
Yeah, and it's not like he can continue to be a police officer at this point. Like, everyone tells him that. Like, your sister died there. Just fucking move to New York.
I mean, he's what? He's almost 30 by this point. He doesn't need to be staying there for his parents or anything.
No.
I mean, so like he gets together with Parker Posey, who is playing Gail in the movie. They are completely, I don't buy them as a couple at all.
No.
But and so like, they're, being shitty to Gail, and then Gail all of a sudden just can't take the idea that he's with someone else now, so she's following him around and like listening in outside their house. I'm like, come on, this is stuff that she would not do.
No.
She would not embarrass herself this way to try to get the man she loves back. She just would not.
Where is all the character development that we saw in Scream 2 evidenced here?
Yeah, she would quietly stew, throw off a couple barb remarks and be done with it. She would not be degrading herself to get him back.
I think where it fits for the character, though, is like it's a character that is very much at a crossroads and doubting herself. Like you see in the first movie, she had her first big break with her first book, and she felt like somebody on the rise, and she had that confidence of a person that was on the rise, and that continues into the second movie. In the third movie, you see with her introduction when she has like the Dr. Loomis and Rob Zombie's Halloween moment where she's on the lecture circuit, and instead of being doused in adulation, like she has audience members that are openly questioning her journalistic ethical standards. And you see that, like, I think where Courtney Cox does a really good job is like, you can see that self-doubt worn in her face. Parker Posey makes the comment like, sorry, 60 Minutes 2 didn't work out, but now you have like what essentially would have been like not even an entertainment, it would have been like a precursor to TMZ television, like just tabloid journalism. And that's not who Gail Weathers sees herself as. So, you can see that character, like she's been taken down a couple pegs. So now when she sees, her ex on the rebound and with another person and kind of like fitting in pretty well to, all aside from Patrick Warburton bringing him down a few pegs, like he seems to kind of fit in, and he looks good. I think at this point, like David Arquette, like actually buffed up a little bit. It looks like for this
he definitely
role.
Buffed up in his cheeks. I don't know. This is in the middle of his wrestling career, so.
It is. It's right around the time that he's going to absolutely destroy the WCW by becoming its champion. Thanks, Vince Russo, you hack writer. But I can see why Gail Weathers was pining for Dewey and like pining for a time when somebody basically hero worshipped her in a relationship to a certain extent.
That really does not help when he's introduced in the visual splendor of gray sports coat over abandoned pool green polo over white tee over David Arquette probably lifting too many weights. It's real vision. Here's the highlight of the movie for me, though, is Parker Posey. Parker, like, if you reduce this movie down to just the Parker Posey scenes and everywhere where she's reacting to other people, this might be the most entertaining film of that particular year.
Well, that's the problem is she's in a mostly different movie from everybody else.
And it's the only movie I like.
She's basically in Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great. It's the best part of the movie is her just moving her eyes all over the place and trying to fuck with people to get them into a Christopher Guest movie they're not aware they're in. It is every part of that I love.
She's a delight. That character, Jennifer Jolie, is an absolute delight because you can feel that she's trying to go full method in this role. And it is like, you know, your favorite third grade niece getting the role of like the tortoise and hare production for the school play and really going for it and thinking like this is going to launch them. Like the next thing is they're going to be starring as the Wicked Witch in Wicked, like really just going for it in a way that is absolutely a delight to watch every moment that she is on screen.
The scene in which they learn that Scream 3 is going to be shut down and Dewey and Gail walk out of the room and she just launches herself into Patrick Warburton's arms.
Like that part I liked.
Mm-hmm.
That part got a chuckle out of me.
I must have seen that. This might be my fourth or fifth time seeing this movie. I've always laughed for 2 minutes straight afterwards. It is without a doubt one of the funniest fucking performances in the Scream franchise. Hands down, it is the funniest performance. It is just unfucking believable how good it is. She's just possessed and in her own film. And I kind of wish everyone else was in the same film, but this movie's already confused enough as it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about the first character that comes into this, which is Cotton Weary.
Don't get attached to him.
Yes.
Oh boy. He's wearing a white sweater underneath a white coat,
which he insisted that he is able to remove because he had been working out, getting ready for that X-Men. He was like, I have to be able to show off the guns, baby.
Yeah. And listen, he's in the peak of health here. Congratulations to him. I don't know what the fuck he's dressed in. That is a wild goddamn look for on camera. But
somehow he has parlayed his experience to becoming the #1 talk show host in America. And I'm like, all right,
I love that.
Why not? You know?
Okay.
I love that he is the Jenny Jones of the Scream universe. It's great. It's wonderful. He's killed for wearing white after Labor Day, right? I mean, that's why.
I think for how good
that
the
all white
packet
outfit
is going to look once it explodes on him is what it comes down to. So he's on his way home, and we're told that he's driving the 101 South near the Hollywood Bowl, but he is not. That is the downtown Long Beach entrance to the 710 that we also saw previously on this podcast, Gina, on Cobra.
Right, that's correct.
Place.
Yes.
So nice try, Scream 3. Fuck you. I know my Los Angeles off ramps. Anyways, he does end up like all over fucking Hollywood. But he gets a phone call from what might be like a random thing that it might be some other fan. It turns out to be Ghostface, who can now switch into any voice he wants to.
Oh my God, this drove me so mad.
Yeah.
That this voice changing technology has upgraded from just kind of giving you a sort of nondescript like robot voice to now you can imitate every single person, whoever you want, even if they've been dead for a couple of years.
Yeah, the imitating a dead person is a particularly sticky wicket for me. Like, I don't think that's a possible thing that can ever really happen. where would he have gotten her voice? It's fucking wild. And how does she have like whispers? Like, do you set it down to whispers where she goes, "Hey, Sydney, I'm around here." Like, how did you get her? Oh my God. I know movie. I know it's a movie. It's a fucking movie. I get it. But I don't hate the idea of pulling a predator on people. It's just that you don't have alien technology, so don't tell me that her dead mother can whisper to her. That's just not a possibility.
Yeah, and they start to introduce this weird supernatural element with Sydney's mom. It starts to kind of tiptoe down that road, and then it completely drops it and never, ever considers it again. It's a very bizarre choice, like that nightmare scene with like Sydney's mom in a little nightgown making the creepy faces outside the window. Like, it feels like it belongs in a completely different movie, and it was inserted in as a joke.
For a second there, I thought you said Creedy, and I thought we had another Creed connection here. But
no!
Listen, we have enough. Anyways, it turns out that that Ghostface Killer is threatening his girlfriend, so he drives through downtown Hollywood as fast as he can. Much better than Charles Bronson did in 10 to Midnight. I think, Gina, we have to agree. He's much better at this.
That's true.
I mean, Charles Bronson is just like complaining, like, "Oh, I can't believe I have to stop at another red light." Whereas at least Cotton's got purpose, because he's got to get home, because his girlfriend, Christine, played by Kelly Rutherford, 2000 now, personified in one blonde, is in mortal danger. Now, when she detects what she thinks is someone in the house, one of the things that she says out loud is, "Oh, Cotton, I'm not in the mood for one of your stab games," which
stab game?
Stab games?
What is going on?
Oh, what now? Have our sexual games become too complicated? He is getting off on the fact that he is involved in multiple homicides? What?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Well, I don't like to kink shame, but that may be a step too far.
Yeah.
At that point.
Listen,
that is
far be
something
it
else.
from us. We have a long history. We don't like to yuck people's yums, but that shit is yucky. So don't murder play if you've been involved in the murders. So yeah, she ends up getting stabbed in the back, and Cotton gets a couple slashes and finally stabbed in the chest. And if that's what you were looking for a cold open for Scream, you got it, I guess. I mean, this is the first warning bell that I don't fucking like this movie. If this is a big whammy for you.
It just seemed like, okay, well, this is a character we have to get rid of.
Yes, we can't have them around. And we have to give him a grand goodbye, which I don't think you have to do. He's not that vital to the proceedings, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, if you just mention oh, Cotton's got a radio show. All right.
Yeah.
Good for
Good for He's
him.
on the radio in New York. Like, that would have worked.
Yeah, I mean, good for you. Rock on. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made the best of this situation.
So they're both dispatched. Hardly knew you. I'm sorry, Kelly Rutherford, for the career that you were given. You were probably better than this. This means it's time to shift to the lead of this motion picture, who's barely in it, and that is Sydney. Sydney, we find out, is, she's the kind of girl who still has post bills of her show in college up on the wall. Do you think she really needs to memorialize that particular production in college, considering, I don't know, several people died during it on stage?
It kind of suggests that they still went ahead and did the show.
Like they went dark for a week, and they're like, I don't know, you think you still want to do it? Because we got all the costumes. So
they cut down her murdered boyfriend, and come on, got to go out the show. That's entertainment, baby.
The show must go on. Every production has a couple of dead bodies that are strung to various set pieces. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Shouldn't have said Macbeth.
I thought the rule was in college, if your roommate died, you got like an instant 4.0 for the semester. So I just wonder if she could parlay the roommate / hometown friend / boyfriend dying, if that's instant, like you graduate salutatorian and on the spot, here's your degree.
An advanced degree thrown in there, just like slid across the desk.
Yeah. It is weird that she would memorialize a show where her boyfriend was killed due to her like not trusting him.
It's an odd choice. That's not really a memory I think she would hold on to dearly by pinning it to her little pegboard there. But even here's the other thing. Like they make a kind of concerted effort to show that she has security, like she has a security thing inside her front door. But she also has a gate which has a code key on it. The problem with this, of course, is that if you're going to have this sort of protected gate, it should be high enough that I can't just leap over it if I get a good 3 or 4 step, lead up to. Like, it's not a tall gate. You could, even if you weren't the most athletically possessed person, you could still like put your tummy up and kind of hoist your way up with your elbows like your kid does in a pool. It's not a tall gate. That's not where you need passcode security, everyone.
Being an early 2000 movie, maybe at one point they thought Vern Troyer was going to be the killer.
You know what? I mean, honestly, it wouldn't have shocked me at that point.
See, that is a much better Scream 3. If Vern Troyer is one of the killers,
Vern Troyer and Wiener Dog teamed up together. I mean, my God.
That's all I want now. If someone can make up a new poster for Scream 3 that includes Vern Troyer and Wiener Dog, I think we could put this in theaters. We could just relaunch it. It'd be fine. People would love it. Oh my God.
Somebody would
somewhere.
I don't know if I want to meet that person.
Well, honestly, I would love it a lot
would.
more than them dipping from the Sydney's mom's a slut well again. I mean, I would really have liked anything else other than that.
It is so weird that now for the third movie, we are constantly going back to the sins of this woman who just wanted to get some. Like, obviously, there are some moral failures.
Consider how many people have been killed by this point because this woman was a little promiscuous. I mean, it's just like, we all undoubtedly have been cheated on at some point in our romantic lives. Like, imagine everybody just going out and starting a murder spree. Not not the person who wronged us, not only them, just like everybody remotely associated with them.
It's like a butterfly effect from her vagina to everyone else in this 4-movie series where everyone has to die because she slept around a little.
Her lack of faithfulness has driven not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 separate people to murder. That's a little, that's one of those things when you think about it more than a minute or two, you're like, nah, that doesn't work for me.
No, it's really hard to pin it on. And listen, this is one of the reasons I wanted to have Mike on for this particular episode. Because I think my original concept is like we would talk about the Hollywoodness of this all. But to be honest with you, it's not particularly faithful to what Hollywood really is or what a production feels like. It really has more to do with PTSD and generational trauma. Like, it is more the psychological. And I don't fault it for wanting to get into those areas and how it affects these characters. I just don't think it does a particularly good job of really rooting this in any sort of psychological truth as far as a therapeutic examination of it. And why should it be? It's supposed to be a horror movie. But then again, it keeps asking these questions and presenting these problems.
We talked about Sydney's arc on psychoanalysis. We talked specifically the first 3 movies in her arc, and we covered PTSD. But before we get to her, like, we're talking about the way that Maureen Prescott
Yeah.
is treated in these 3 movies, like the idea that because she was promiscuous, people have to die. What really happens to Maureen Prescott is that she's sexually assaulted in Hollywood. Like, she is basically, John Milton, played by Lance Henriksen, basically says, like, she came to my party. She knew the deal. It was a, play to pay type of deal where if you wanted to, get roles in my movies, like, you were going to put out no questions asked. And that's where the Weinstein connection really comes in here. But that's really glossed over. Like, it's really never talked about again. I think at one point, Gail Weathers says, like, yeah, she was gone from Woodsboro for 2 years. No one knew where she was. And she would never, ever speak about this time of her life again. Like, no one knew where she was. And this trauma, she buried this trauma so deep inside of her that she wouldn't speak about it with anybody. And the way that trauma ended up coming out, because you can only push your feelings down for so long before they come out in a variety of different ways. The way that came out was basically the promiscuity. And it wasn't one that was like rooted in her, possibly it was rooted in her wanting to maybe reclaim her sexuality a bit or make a connection. I don't know, because the films don't really dive too much into it. But rather than treat Maureen Prescott like really the victim that she is, like, these 3 movies really treat her, like you said, Patrick, is like the catalyst for all of this, when really she's every bit the victim. I mean, she's a victim and that she's murdered off screen, and her murder is what triggers the events in Woodsboro 1 year later. So, yeah, that was weird how this movie hints at her being assaulted, but then glosses over it and chalks everything up to her just being like, even the way she treats Roman, like she slams the door in his face and wants nothing to do with him. And that's kind of understandable. Like, if someone showed up on your doorstep and said, hey, I am the child, that you gave away, and you were born out
Traumatic
of this
experience. Yeah.
time of your life. Yeah. I don't
the problem
falter.
is that they level this whole, she was actually raped, and then nothing happens to Milton. Like, nothing happens to him. We get no sort of satisfying comeuppance from that.
Yeah. I mean, he gets like stabbed a little bit and thrown on the floor. Like, his crimes are not brought to light. That's not they don't take it to the press. They don't, or even threaten it. Like, oh, I'm going to blow your shit up. Like, you won't ever hear the end of this.
Yeah.
Instead, we get a very long monologue in his office where he talks about how this town is full of criminals that are working all the time, and just blaring police lights around this particular statement should be played in court. Like, holy fuck.
You're right.
It is goddamn wild. The only time I've really ever seen something like this particular thing where someone tells something so clearly through a movie is it was called Paparazzi, and the movie was conceived of and executive produced by Mel Gibson. And in it, the biggest movie star in the world, his family is killed when the paparazzi take his photograph while he's driving away from a premiere. And he goes about killing all of them one by one. And you sort of think, this is what Mel Gibson wants to do.
Yes.
He thought of it like, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to kill the paparazzi, and I'd like to get rid of my wife in one fell go, and I'd blame it on them, and then I'd accuse a couple of them of murder, and then they'd be put away. And then I'd be free to go and have sex with anyone I want and accuse them of having sex with black people. That's my Australian accent, everyone. Thank you. Good night. I just accused Mel Gibson of wanting to kill people because he does it enough. Why shouldn't I?
Right. I mean, yeah, it's something that he hasn't said aloud many times.
No, he just made a fucking movie about it. Not only did he make a movie about it, but he asked his friends to be in it. In it, Chris Rock who was at the time the biggest comedy star on the planet, plays a pizza delivery guy for no fucking reason.
Of course.
Because Chris Rock shows up as a pizza delivery guy just so Mel Gibson can make a movie about how he wants to kill photographers. That is a real fucking thing that happened. And weirdly enough, like, this is kind of worse because as far as I'm aware, Mel Gibson has not killed any photographers. But I do know that Harvey Weinstein sexually assaulted and raped multiple people within this industry.
Yes.
Well, there's also, going back to the mid-90s, the movie Swimming with Sharks, which is apparently about Scott Rudin. And, very much so. And it took literally about 25 years for anybody to finally just, actually say something about him directly.
And also, weirdly enough, starring a person who would later be credibly accused of sexual assault multiple times. And those accusers, when they tried to bring those cases to court, mysteriously die. So there's that. What fun. What a fun, happy podcast we have. Filled with sexual assault and murder.
God bless Hollywood.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'll never forgive Scream 3 for bringing us to this point.
I don't think Scream 3 is the reason why Kevin Spacey is a creep.
Mike, stop making excuses for it. This is Scream 3's fault.
That is a high crime to accuse a movie of. What I do love about Sydney is the way that, she comes into the first movie already suffering from trauma. Like, she's still recovering from the death of her mother a year ago. Her dad is absentee. Like, you can tell, like, he's on the road as much as possible because he can't really deal with everything. Not only discovering his wife, like, cheated on him, but also that, like, she was murdered for it and, like, the scandal of that. You see her kind of recovering in the second movie a year later. But the third movie, she's kind of become a recluse. Well, not kind of. She's become a recluse. Like, no one knows where she is. She's doing things in her own terms. And what I do love, and she's wearing the necklace that Jerry O'Connell gave to her in the second movie. Like, she wears that throughout this movie, which is kind of a nice little costuming touch. She's trying to help other victims and other survivors, like by, I don't know if it's her job or she's volunteering for a crisis line, but that is like her way to kind of come to terms with what's happened to her. And I know that, she doesn't really appear in the movie until about the hour mark of it because of only being available for under 3 weeks. But when she does emerge in this movie, she emerges on her own terms. Like, she decides that she's going to, like, no one forces her to make an appearance. She decides, okay, my friends need me. I'm going to do what I can to help them out. And she's, at the very least, trying to solve this on her own terms rather than be someone who's constantly on the run. And I think that the very end of this movie, when, she's going to sit down with, McDreamy, the detective, and Gail and Dewey, when the door opens and she just looks at it and doesn't run over to slam it closed, but just acknowledges it's open and goes to join her friends. Like, it is, and I like Scream 3 obviously more than both of you, but I acknowledge, like, of the 4 Scream movies, it would be my bottom one. And I love all the Scream movies. I think it's the perfect capper to the original trilogy. Like, that little moment feels so earned and so wonderful, and just such a great statement on how you can eventually move past your trauma. You can do the work, and it's not that you'll ever forget it, but you don't have to let it define you for the rest of your life either. So I think that last moment does a lot of the work to kind of, at least in my eyes, to redeem some of the more egregious things about this movie.
Well, I like what they did with her. I found that the whole working for a crisis hotline was pretty good. I liked that. It just didn't go with the rest of the movie. All the parodying Hollywood bullshit. It's like, no, I am not at all interested in that. But I agree with you that I like the way it ended. I thought that was pretty well done.
Yeah. And the idea of it sort of reflecting and refracting the first movie and having to, I think the one standout, thriller suspense sequence of it is the inside the Woodsboro set, where her house is now jumbled from where it used to be. Her upstairs bedroom is now on the first floor because that's the way they would shoot it. And that, she's going through this house that the first movie ended in and walking into a different house, and how it plays with that sort of expectation thing that Scream 2 did very, very well in addition to this. That stuff I like. Where I feel it is somewhat let down is that some of the character moments for Gale and, for Dewey are just kind of, I think they're waylaid because they end up getting the bulk of the plot delivery system of the motion picture. And on top of that, the Hollywood stuff seems needlessly navel gazing. I mean, there's meta, and then there is just like the only thing we have is to comment on the fact that this is a movie. And that's what it feels like. It's what they were left with. Because the original concept of this, as it was built in the outline, was that you had Matthew Lillard's character was alive in jail, and that he was secretly corresponding with duos of young people and forcing them to commit murders under his tutelage.
Now, why didn't they do that? Because that actually makes more sense to me and is more plausible than the motivation in what they ended up going with.
So here's the problem that got it scuttled, which is Columbine, where a duo of young people went out.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I know that they toned it down a lot for Columbine, which kind of makes you wonder, why did you bother?
Yeah.
I get that the idea is dollar sign, but
right
at this point, if you have to no pun intended, gut the concept of your original movie because you don't want to even inadvertently give anybody the impression that you're sort of encouraging or endorsing this behavior, it just don't bother. Just honest to God, don't bother.
No, I think the Weinsteins were cash poor.
Yeah.
This is the we're getting into a moment in time where their constant buying and repackaging of motion pictures was petering out for them as an institution. Disney was souring on them as a company, and they were just desperate. They were desperate for anything that would make them money, and Scream was the thing that was making them buttloads of money. And I think they had deals on the table with the primary people involved in this, and there was a time in which they could make it. Otherwise, they would have to make new deals. And so they were desperate, and they just they're like, Scream 2 worked out. Get out there, guys. Just make it fucking work. And they pushed it into being. And I think Aaron Kruger looked around and said, well, why don't we make this about making Scream? And everyone's like, I guess. And then they were making a movie. So all the scenes in which people go, oh, fuck it, there's new script pages. We can't even learn our lines. That's this movie. They're just talking about making this movie.
Yeah. And I know Craven was on the record, both with this movie and I believe Scream 4, which Kruger also gets involved in to like rewrite Williamson's material. And Craven was very on the record outspoken of saying like, I rewrote a lot of Kruger stuff. Like we just didn't go with it.
Yeah.
Because he basically says Kruger seems to have like a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes our core characters work in these movies. At one point there was talk about there being like no bloodletting in the movie, that it was going to just be like a completely bloodless slasher movie, to which Craven said, like it's a Scream movie. Like, I think sometimes I had forgotten after I had stopped watching the first movie for a while, how brutal some of the kills actually are in that movie. Like it's a pretty gory movie, and they wanted it. And this one does feel much more, aside from maybe Cotton's death, much more toned down than the other movies do, because of a lot of the backlash and violence in media and what that was doing to, think of the children. It seemed like that was rearing its ugly head again. And now it honestly feels like the Wild West, like you can pretty much get away with everything.
Oh, you could get away with more on basic cable right now.
Oh, yeah, for
Hannibal
sure.
is insane. That happened on NBC, for Christ's sakes. And this is a PG-13 church choir in comparison to that. And when in the previous movies, we've always talked about how, in a way, they are reflections of how Wes Craven feels about horror and his participation in it. In Scream, Williamson has a very distinct point of view where he says out loud, movies do not create psychos. That is not a thing. And while Craven believes that, he also feels like they're not always contributing the best things to a society. You already see that with New Nightmare, where he's really reflecting on his legacy as a filmmaker, going, is this something that is, while it has always been a part of it, are we exorcising demons, or are we giving them a place to exercise? And Scream 2 is, can you move past that? And then there's a lot of technical brilliance in both films, and they both sing. And here, I feel like part of the appeal of making it about Hollywood is to point to this, kind of gross feeling that violence is part of a product, and that's all it is, and everyone hates being a part of it. Yeah. And deep down, he resents himself for doing it. But I just don't think that component of it is given wings the way it is in New Nightmare and Scream 1 and Scream 2.
Yeah, to me, it feels like another one of these movies. And then these have come up for us before, Patrick, where it feels like the people involved don't actually like horror movies. But that obviously is not true for Wes Craven. But it sort of feels like everybody's just sort of not really wanting to do this movie, that it's a cash grab. And when you have that mixed with a sort of casting couch greed plus, slut shaming at the same time, it's like, I don't know what you're trying to say here. I don't know what this movie is about. I don't know what my focus is supposed to be on.
I don't think Wes Craven knows what it's about 100% either.
I don't think he was given enough time.
Yeah. At one point, he has the character of Roman acts like a mouthpiece for Craven. When he's like opining about the movie getting shut down, he's like, I wanted to make a romantic comedy, and I was told I have to make a horror movie before I can actually make that. And this is the time where like Wes Craven wants to make music of the heart, which he went on to do with Meryl Streep. But he was told, like, if you want to make music of the heart, the only way we're going to give you the funding for that is you have to make Scream 3. Yeah. So it feels like, as much as like Scream 1 is an absolute shot in the arm for Wes Craven in terms of like how, this is a guy who like in 3 decades, in the 70s, he really went on to define what exploitation fare can look like. In the 80s, A Nightmare on Elm Street launches the best franchise of any of the 80s slashers and the most imaginative of them. And then in like mid 90s, when Scream comes out, it comes out at a time when horror was definitely on the downswing, at least theatrically. So this is a guy who in 3 decades took massive shots and hit them out of the park each time. But now he's like, what else does he have to say at this point? Especially only being 3-4 years removed from Scream 1 and Scream 2. He's like, let me do some other things at this point. Like, there's more I can do.
Yeah, it's a weird place that he's put into. And so part of the film is like revealing their true feelings about being involved in it. And then some of it just seems so disconnected. I mean, I think we'll probably end up talking about it a little bit more in Scream 4, but just his pathway through that post-Scream aftermath is wild, because you have music of the heart which happens in between. It's Scream 2, then Music of the Heart, then Scream 3. So yeah, he's on the hook. And so he's able to do the one thing. It doesn't fire at the same level. It is a good movie. It's probably not a great movie. Scream 3 is very muddled, and he goes right into Cursed, which at least he's working with Williamson, but then he's still working with Dimension, who just fuck him into the ground on that motion picture, to the point where it's essentially made 3 times. 3 times to make a fucking werewolf movie, which is now only remembered for a werewolf flipping off the camera. That's it. Like that is the sole redeeming feature of Cursed, is there's the gif of the werewolf flipping off a camera.
Someone out there, you just broke Ryan Larson's heart right now. Poor
listen,
our
it
friend
won't be the
Ryan.
first time I've broken Ryan Larson's heart with what I've said about a particular movie. So I'm sorry, Ryan, but it's the fucking truth. Listen, someone should love it. Every movie should have a defender. I'm sorry. But that same year is Red Eye, and Red Eye fucks. Red Eye is amazeballs. It is fan-fucking-tastic. It is Craven's Hitchcock level movie. It is just a tight little thriller. It's great performances. It knows exactly what it wants to do and how it wants to do it. He is on point throughout. It is genius in comparison to Cursed and to most motion pictures. It is just fantastic. And then you have 5 years later, it's like, I don't know, my soul to take.
Yeah, I mean, you can like there's a a big difference when Wes Craven is really into the material he's working on and when he isn't. And here he is not.
No.
Have either of you seen Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back?
Regrettably.
Yeah. Once upon a time.
So there's a scene in that movie, there's a little cameo with Gus Van Sant where where Damon is trying to get direction from him. And it's just Van Sant like sitting over a table, counting his money, going, yeah, whatever, guys, just like totally disinterested. And it does feel like there's a little bit of that going on right here. Just like, all right, we got to do it. But like you said, Gina, his heart's not into it, which it'll be interesting. I can't wait to hear your take on Scream 4, especially if it's a first-time watch for you, Gina, because I feel like that is a movie that is so prescient and predicts so much of like influencer culture and what is unfortunately coming down the pike like just a few years later. That movie feels like a complete breath of fresh air. And to me, it's the second best in the series. And I think it took a long time for that movie to get its reevaluation, but it's come. And I think people are starting to really appreciate what that one had to offer. So,
yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And when I went into watching this, I knew that it was the least well-regarded in the series. I'm just kind of surprised by how little of it actually works because the first 2 were just so well done and so efficient, and they weren't trying to do 3 different things at one time, and everybody involved was absolutely thrilled to be there and just putting their all into it. And here everybody's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Some people are in a horror movie, some people are in a comedy. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's just a cash grab.
Yeah. It could have been subtitled Contractual Obligation.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The indifference and annoyance of the characters in the movie sort of reflect how that's what it feels like to the audience too. That everybody involved was just indifferent and annoyed about it.
Everything has to, all the plot now has to be piled into Gale and Dewey. You have all these periphery characters, which are just never built up. They just exist to exist. Like Emily Mortimer, who's, let's just come out and say it, like a truly great and gifted actress, given nothing to do here. Yeah. Absolutely set adrift. Like at one point, she gets a whole boot herring scene, Gina, in the bathroom where she's in the boots. Like it's telling you right there that she's a fucking suspect. And the movie just doesn't even like bother to show you the boots.
Yeah.
It's wild that it just doesn't care. You have Dion Richmond playing a character named Tyson, who, tells you like, all these deaths are happening, but I can't walk away from this movie because I'm in competition with Usher and LL Cool J. And like, oh, okay. I mean, you have a point with like what it's like to be a black actor trying to work in Hollywood, but now we're bringing LL Cool J into this shit. Like, what the fuck is happening here? It's so confused to the point. And then you have Jenny McCarthy, who is playing Jenny McCarthy. Fucking tongue. Like, that's not a character.
Yeah.
She just fucking exists.
Yeah. The part where the movie really lost me, other than the Jay and Silent Bob cameo, which I'm just like, I think I literally said, "Oh, fuck you," movie out loud. I mean, Miramax 2000, am I right? But
yeah.
It's again just Randy's sister popping up out of nowhere, a character we've never seen before, that we never knew existed. And she just sort of appears on the studio lot like she knew to be there, which is puzzling to me. Like, how did she know where to go, where to find them? And she's like, "Oh, I have a message for you."
I brought a videotape and they let me onto the lot.
It's a videotape of Randy explaining how third movies and franchises work. And I'm like, oh my God. We know how third movies and franchises work. These are the people who are watching the third movie in a franchise know how third movies and franchises work. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to say, "Oh, well, Sid might could get killed," because she's not going to get killed.
Yeah. Well, here's the fucking thing.
But why not? She could have been. Why not?
She could have been. Yes, absolutely.
Why tease that and then not do it?
I don't know. It feels like Aaron Kruger who, as previously stated by Mike, may not have understood what the point of these characters are, because up until this point, Randy has been the quote unquote expert who manages to get all the things wrong about horror movies. And in this one, he's like accurately predicting how the end of the movie is going to be. It's like, well, how did he get this fucking character development after being stabbed to death in a van? He couldn't get what was going to happen in Scream 2, right? Why would he get what's right in Scream 3?
And
he doesn't even fucking understand what Randy is.
And did he foresee his own death and make this video to send it to Sydney at some undisclosed time?
He did.
I don't know how this Randy fits into Scream 2's Randy is just out to fucking lunch. I don't know how this is goddamn possible. And not to say that he wouldn't make a videotape, but the fact that he's right.
It does this thing that I hate where like a character on a videotape and another character have like an almost conversation, like that kind of banter, like, "You slept with who?" And it's like, "Shut up." And I hate when that happens. But also, like, to me, it absolutely blows my mind that there is a point in human history where Jamie Kennedy had so much pop culture cachet that they're like, we have to include this character in the movie, no matter how poorly shoehorned it is. And how it
that's
doesn't
how
really
I feel.
fit.
It's like having they had to have Cotton in there. No, you didn't have to have Cotton in there. He's a side character. You did not have to have him in there. His storyline was resolved. He was absolved of his supposed crime. It turned out he was not a creep, although he kind of comes off like a creep in this. And
he's a kind of creep.
And apparently is a creep who plays weird sex games that they kind of hint at. Then they say, well, we have to have Randy. The kids love Randy. And I guess, sure. But just using this plot device of the sister, I'm like, don't have the sister show up and then, not do anything with her.
No.
She just appears, plays a videotape, and then just practically turns into a bat on her way out.
Kind of comes off a little creepy, which sort of feels like they were supposed to do something with her originally.
Yeah,
and upon rewrite 6 or so, they just decide to leave her in this scene, which makes no sense to the context of the story.
I did enjoy seeing a random bust of Bebop from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Roman's office for just out of fucking nowhere. Between that and the Creed poster, what universe does this exist in? Why does he have a bust of Bebop? It makes no fucking sense. It just, everyone hates everyone. Gale shows up at one point. Again, another character festooned in an off-white turtleneck with off-white zip-up hoodie. But then she's wearing Eddie Murphy's raw red leather pants as a bottom to it. Like she's just gone for a run in Malibu. It just does not make any goddamn sense whatsoever. Patrick Warburton's okay.
He's always a welcome presence. Patrick Warburton is always a welcome presence in anything he does.
True. Very true.
Always playing Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, that's right. Whether he's, getting you online for a ride at Disneyland or playing someone's bodyguard, he's always kind of putty at the end of the day. It should be noted that Matt Kessler, last seen previous to this film as the hunky Johnny Savage in Waiting for Guffman.
Yes.
Who went on to play nonstop assholes until he just up and retired from the business. And now he's a physician assistant.
All right.
Good for him.
Yeah. God bless.
Yeah. Way to go, man. You went out on top, I guess. Also, if you said, like, Patrick, like, what's a reason to watch this movie? And I would say watch it with the sound really turned up when after the entire house blows up with Matt Kessler inside. And you have Gale and Dewey falling down this hill. You can also hear Parker Posey, who's with them.
Yes, you don't even have to turn the sound up. You have your closed captioning on. It'll pop up.
And she says, "Falling still, damn it!" Like
I can't stop rolling down this hill. Listen, she's no shade on her. She was great. She's just in an entirely different movie, though.
Yes, but thank God someone was in a different movie. Oh, speaking of weird movie confluences, did any of you notice that when Randy says the word trilogy in his video, that the soundtrack goes?
I did not notice that.
No, I didn't either, but I had my air conditioner on.
I watched it with headphones on. It's the only reason I know.
Yeah, I had my air conditioner on. I probably was not able to hear it.
My hearing is so bad after spending all of my like teens, 20s, and 30s at little punk shows and standing right next to the PA going like, who needs earbuds? It is. I'm quickly approaching subtitles for everything territory.
Yeah, no, I think it enhances everything. One of my favorite Parker Posey lines, and her line ratings are, "You're obsessed with her and you're obsessed with her daughter." I want that audio clip and I just want it isolated so I can use it for the rest of my life. I'm not sure for what, but I find it just delightful, fucking delightful.
She is, and it took me a long time to come around on her character, but she is a delight in this movie to watch because I think that it would be too dour. Because again, like you said, like the red shirt characters, the ones that exist basically because you need a body count, there's nothing to any of them. And the first two Scream movies, like part of why those movies work is like you feel a real connection to Tatum, like Randy's death is still debated to this day. Like there are people that, really hated that Randy died in the second movie. Like you really like these characters a lot. There is enough there for you to feel connected to them. Here, like all of your victims are like they're red shirts in Star Trek. Like there's nothing to them. They're a trope.
No, they exist to be cut down. It is everything that Scream was designed not to be. Yeah. And that's what ultimately is like the greatest sin of the motion picture. It's not to say that there aren't enjoyable components to it. And falling on the heels of the sort of technical brilliance of Scream 2, I feel like Scream 3 really is not the best avenue for suspense sequences outside of the Woodsboro set. I don't feel anything in the last 45 minutes, which really should be a setup to be a great funhouse. Because you have secret passages, you have hidden perv components where people are trapped behind glass, which again, another callback to Scream 2, but it's not doing it as well. And so ultimately it just becomes an empty echo. It doesn't have the same resonance as the first use of it. And you have a sequence set up where it looks like Gail's going to have to crawl over Ghostface's body to get out of the basement. And instead she calls Dewey, and they have this who's on first going on, where he thinks that she might be Ghostface using the voice changer. And it's like, Jesus Christ, this is really undercutting the tension here. What is the point? What is the goal? Stay on task. And the movie just can't quite do it for me.
I do enjoy that last act, and they're in that Roman's house, not Milton's house, for almost an hour at the end of this movie. I do enjoy the kind of, like Gina, you put the Scooby-Doo-ness of that part of the movie. I think there are some sequences that work really well. I think when Emily Mortimer's character is killed and she's lying at the foot of the stairs and they're looking down at her and the body like just gets dragged off. Like, I love that sequence right there. Like, that actually creeped me out.
See, I would like that more if Emily Mortimer then pops up alive.
Sure.
After that.
Sure.
And that was all for show. It really undercuts that. All of this feels like they set things up and then people keep pulling rugs out from underneath them to really execute at the highest level. And I can't judge this movie on what it isn't. I can only judge it on what it is. And so while I do like the Nightmare on Elm Street reference there of pulling the dead body away, like, I do like it, but I think I would love it if, you know what I mean?
I get you. I think you've had two movies, though, where you have a pair of killers. So, you know, going into this one as an audience, like, you're expecting that. So to have it just be the one killer almost subverts what the other Scream movies have done. And then the thing with like the two-way mirrors in the bedroom, like, what hit me on this last rewatch was like, before I'm like, why would somebody have that in their, like, it just hit me like why somebody would have that in their master bedroom, like the voyeurism aspect of it. And most likely, given that character's proclivities, like the non-consensual voyeurism aspect of it. And it's kind of a way, again, to like tip the hand at the creepiness of like John Milton and like that Hollywood producer character. So I really like a lot of the last part of this movie. I think that's where it actually finds like a really good amount of energy and becomes a lot more fun. And I love the physicality between Roman and Sidney in their kind of battle. Like, it becomes like a pretty brutal affair. And also, when we talk about Roman, I guess we'll get into like basically the fuck off that he gets, like the whole speech that Sidney gives him to basically be like, fucking grow up and get over yourself, dude.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much, with the exception, here's the one thing that I'm not sure about, and I'm hoping either of you can help me with this. Now, at one point, Kincaid, the long hair of the law, shows up, and they have sort of a red herring showdown between him and Sidney, and then Ghostface shows up, and they have a fist fight. He ends up taking a face full of chimney and falls to the ground. So that's in the living room. Fast forward towards the end of the movie, after Gail and Dewey have broken their way into the secret screening room. This is a separate room. And then Gail looks over and goes, "Hey, Kincaid, are you all right?" How the fuck did he end up in that room? Was there some sort of Harry Potter flume where he went through the fireplace into another fucking fireplace?
He found another way in when the power went out. Like, he's the one that picks the lock.
I thought Dewey was the one who picked the lock.
Because he opens the door and he has like the little gun in his hand, and he confronts Sidney, and then like Ghostface stabs him again. That's how Roman gets the gun that he shoots Sidney with. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I had a 4:30 beer in the afternoon.
Sure.
So
and it's hard to follow. Like, it's definitely not. And my understanding is like he was shoehorned into the last act of the movie because he wasn't originally in it, because like they realized Patrick Dempsey had just sort of disappeared at one point during the movie, never to show up again. So they're like, we got to get him in more of this movie. So
got to get that haircut into every frame.
Well, I want to know. I know Patrick Dempsey from Can't Buy Me Love, which I rewatched and I was laid up on the couch with a knee injury. And that is a very misleading movie title. Because technically he does.
He absolutely
at the
does.
end of the day,
He absolutely
buys
does.
Some love.
Yeah. He buys the love at the end of that movie. So that I felt like I was misled by the title of that movie.
The only weirder movie from him is Pizza Boy.
Oh my God.
In which he plays basically a underage male escort who works at a pizza joint. And then when undersexed MILFs order a pizza with extra anchovies, that's his cue to go over and have sex with them. That's the movie. That's a fucking movie. It is, again, another thing that should be held up as evidence in court.
That was
there.
That was from a glorious time when it was funny for 40-year-old women to be chasing after 16-year-old boys.
It's fine because of penis. Anyways, another thing that's fine because of penis is choose your own death venture. And that is where we decide of the deaths presented in this motion picture, which one would you to choose to die from and why? Up for bid. It's a fuck ton of stabbing. We got stabbed in the back, hit with a golf club, slashed in the arm, and then stabbed in the chest. We got stabbed in the back, hit with a frying pan. You get blown up real good in a kitchen. But it's in the Hollywood Hills. It's a nice little bungalow kitchen. Then you got stabbed and thrown from a second floor in a way that seems a little redundant, but okay. Then you get stabbed in the gut inside of a perv's closet. And finally, stabbed in the back twice, stabbed in the chest once, and finally shot in the head. Mike, you're our guest. I choose you to go first.
Oh boy, there are a lot to choose from there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Which way do I want to get stabbed?
Pretty much.
I don't want to get stabbed in the gut because that would take a long time to die and that would be horrifying. Mm-hmm. I'm probably going with the quick and easy explosion. I think that would be, I think that would be, because then I could say that I died as I lived, like overly gassy. And that would make for a fun joke at my funeral. So I'm going to go death by explosion.
That works for me. Gina, what say you?
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and just take stabbed in the back the way Cotton's girlfriend goes. Yeah, she seems to go pretty quick.
Yeah, very much so. I think really of these, I don't like heights. And I don't like the stabbed in the back and hit with a frying pan because then I'm just walking around for a little bit after that. I think I'm going to have to get exploded in a kitchen. It's the way it goes because then at least I'm reading faxes and I've always wanted to get a fax and I never really did. Even when that was the only way I could get Disney to pay me up until 2 years ago, they were faxing fucking invoices.
And you'll be getting faxes that will predict your imminent demise.
Yes, right. Which is the way I read most scripts is seeing when I die next. When will my great joke be torn asunder and thrown on the ground? But that's a professional critique that has no meaning here. Before we go, Mike, where can people hear more from you and what you're doing?
So I have 2 podcasts I run. One of them, or a co-host of. I have 2 shows I'm a co-host of. My first show is The Pod and the Pendulum, where we cover all horror movie franchises. We do like a different movie every episode, continuing through a series.
It talks about franchises on a podcast?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let's see how that goes for you.
I had this idea in grad school. Like when I finish grad school, I'm going to start this show. And then I'm like, no one's doing this. Then the summer I was graduating, stumbled upon both Kill by Kill and Halloweenies. And I'm like, motherfuckers. But I am as competitive as I am, I think I got to say, like, I absolutely adore both your show and Halloweenies. I think they are 2 of the best shows that are out there, and they're just a goddamn treat to listen to. And I know that Halloweenies is never covering the Critter series. They're not going to, deem themselves to go that low.
Who's to say? Let's not count our
they
chickens
have
yet.
standards. So I co-host this with Lindsay Travis, who is like the James Brown of the entertainment coverage industry. She's the hardest working woman that I know, and she's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely.
We just wrapped up the Evil Dead series and are starting on the Conjuring verse next up. So I'm really excited for that. My other show I co-host with Laura Undersall of Losers Club and Halloweenies, and Jen Adams of Losers Club and formerly of the Horror Virgins. We do Psychoanalysis, a horror therapy podcast, where every month we tackle a different topic in the mental health field, whether it's anxiety, PTSD, depression. This month we're doing a little bit fun thing called Bad Dads. Which we just did the Stepfather, where we do like a clinical look at the topic and then like a fun deep dive into the movie itself. So that has been an absolute blast to do. We do 2 shows like that every month, and then 2 comfort horror episodes with guests where we just talk about a movie, horror movie that brings us like joy and love, and it's kind of a form of self-care. So that has been a blast to do. And I would say the trick to doing any podcast is work with people that are more brilliant than yourself.
Yeah, I believe
and
that.
ride their coattails.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Listen, in this relationship, Gina is the sniper, and I just have a crazy Tommy gun that I just fire all over the place.
There you go.
Like I'm really benefiting from my company here. And Gina did an episode with psychotherapy. Yeah,
I did.
Yep, she did. And you were a brief guest, Patrick. We talked about your love of the Doctor in Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 3. Yeah. But we need to have both of you on Pod and the Pendulum. So I'll send you the list and get to stepping. All right. Let's get up. Let's sign up, because
let's make it happen.
Like I said,
Wonder Twins activate.
Yeah.
Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about television and movies at thespool.net. In June, I am going to be covering the Tribeca Film Festival. Going to be hanging out with my good friend Bobby De Niro. You know, we'll have some laughs. Talk about the de-aging and the Irishman. You know, it's gonna be a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
And now, how many questions do you have for him about Bad Grandpa? Because I have several.
I have a scroll. Send it to me. I'll add it to the list.
Excellent.
And I am also on Twitter under Porcelain72.
Do it today, people. Check it out. Of course, you can find us on Twitter and on all the social medias. We're on Letterboxd. Hey, if you want to support us, come on over to Patreon. We have all sorts of good stuff. The last episode that we have for y'all, we're covering Dead Snow, a Swedish
let's just say Scandinavian.
Yeah, sure. It's of the region. It's foreign. It's got Nazi zombies, which is real unproblematic nowadays. So it was a real delight to dip our toe into zombies that also happen to be zombies. Oh, fuck that movie. Anyways, it's fun. But do it today. We enjoy that. Of course, we'll be back next week with more Hannibal. We're continuing dish by dish, going through season 2, episode by episode. And the week after that, we will be back here on Kill by Kill. Until then, for myself, for Gina and Mike, the body count will continue. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.